It was a bright Saturday afternoon, the sun spilling through the windows and making the room feel warm and alive. He, a 22-year-old young man, had never felt quite so out of place. The air seemed charged, every small noise, the hum of the fridge, the faint rustle of papers, the soft ticking of a wall clock, magnified by the awareness of her presence. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Caucasian woman, long black hair cascading in soft waves past her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing in the sunlight, and dark brown eyes that were both confident and gently teasing. Subtle laugh lines framed her eyes, and her curvy figure carried a graceful poise that made her presence feel both powerful and approachable. The moment their eyes met, the air shifted. He stumbled over his words, cheeks heating, heart racing faster than he had expected. She noticed immediately a soft, amused smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "You're nervous? That makes you even cuter," she teased, the words carrying warmth, humor, and an unexpected intimacy. It wasn't just a joke. There was a spark in her gaze that made him pause, caught between embarrassment and fascination. He shifted awkwardly, trying to find something to say, something clever, but every sentence seemed to fail him. And she laughed, softly, the sound light and melodic, wrapping around him like a gentle embrace. It was the kind of laughter that made a room feel warmer, a moment feel longer, and nerves feel simultaneously thrilling and paralyzing. The environment itself seemed to emphasize the tension. A kitchen counter, perhaps, where she leaned casually against the edge while he balanced a book in his hands, or a cozy living room with sunlit furniture, soft textures, and the faint aroma of her perfume, vanilla with a hint of something floral, making every inhale a reminder of her presence. Even mundane gestures were charged. Her hand brushing his arm accidentally as she reached for something, the subtle tilt of her head as she studied his expression, the way she adjusted her long black hair, sending it cascading across her shoulders in a natural, mesmerizing motion. He noticed everything. The curve of her smile, the softness in her voice, the slight shimmer in her eyes when she laughed. And yet, the age gap weighed silently in his mind, a reminder that she was 40 and he was barely in his early 20s. The nervousness wasn't just about being around an attractive woman. It was about stepping into a dynamic where maturity, experience, and confidence contrasted with his own tentative curiosity. Every interaction became a careful dance. She leaned slightly closer to emphasize a point, her warmth brushing against him in a brief, electrifying moment. His heartbeat thrummed in his ears. Every glance, every small gesture, hinted at a subtle connection forming, an unspoken acknowledgement that, despite the age difference, something remarkable and forbidden feeling was beginning between them. By the end of that afternoon, the first rule of this uncharted territory was clear. This wasn't just an encounter. It was the start of a slow, deliberate, emotional journey, where nervous glances, playful teasing, and the quiet electricity of proximity would shape every interaction to come. After that first teasing comment, every interaction became a delicate dance of tension and curiosity. He was 22, still learning how to navigate feelings he had never experienced before, and she was 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman with long black hair falling in sleek waves past her shoulders, lightly tanned skin, and expressive dark brown eyes. Her subtle laugh lines framed a face that radiated confidence and warmth, and her curvy figure moved with the effortless grace of someone completely at ease in her own skin. Even in casual clothes, a soft blouse paired with jeans or a cardigan over a summer dress, she seemed impossibly elegant, magnetic, and approachable all at once. It started small. A book passed between them, her fingers brushing his for just a fraction of a second. He felt a spark, the warmth of her skin, the softness of her hand, and the pulse of energy that lingered long after contact. His words stumbled as he tried to thank her, and she noticed immediately. That familiar teasing smile curved her lips, and she said softly, "You're still nervous, aren't you?" The playful tone made his heart skip again. They moved around each other carefully, navigating the space with unspoken rules. She leaned slightly closer to show him something in a book, and he felt the subtle pressure of her presence, the warmth radiating from her body, making it impossible to focus entirely on the task at hand. When he laughed nervously at a joke she made, her dark brown eyes softened, and she tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity and amusement. It was a moment of connection, of recognition, of attention that was both thrilling and terrifying. The environment amplified their interaction. Whether it was a sunlit kitchen, a cozy living room, or a quiet backyard, the bright, warm light made her features glow. Her hair catching the sun, the gentle curves of her face illuminated in a way that seemed to hold his attention hostage. The scent of vanilla and jasmine lingered around her, mingling with the faint aroma of books or fresh coffee, making every breath he took a reminder of her presence. Small sounds, the rustle of papers, the soft click of a door, or even the wind against a window, felt magnified in the quiet intimacy they shared. As the moments passed, the teasing continued, but it carried a subtle depth. She began to notice his growing confidence, encouraging it gently, pushing him just slightly beyond his comfort zone without ever making him feel inadequate. Each touch was brief but meaningful, a hand lightly resting on his shoulder, fingers grazing his arm as she reached for a book, or the accidental closeness when reaching across a counter. By the end of their time together, it was clear that the playful tension was more than teasing. It was a slowly building bond, an emotional thread connecting two people across years of life experience. He was captivated not just by her beauty and confidence, but by the warmth, kindness, and subtle vulnerability she allowed him glimpses of. And she, in turn, seemed drawn to his sincerity, his nervous charm, and the way he looked at her with a mixture of awe, curiosity, and respect. This stage of flustered interactions set the foundation for everything that would follow: quiet intimacy, emotional trust, and the subtle, electric anticipation that came from two people learning to exist in the same space, aware of each other in a way that neither could ignore. A few days later, a quiet moment presented itself, a chance for them to be alone, away from the playful teasing and distracted interactions of earlier encounters. He was 22, aware of every flutter in his chest, every nervous shift of his hands. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Caucasian woman, her long black hair falling in smooth waves past her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing softly in the afternoon sunlight, and dark brown eyes that combined warmth, amusement, and just a hint of challenge. The subtle laugh lines around her eyes and the gentle curve of her smile made her presence comforting yet electrifying. They found themselves in a sunlit corner of the living room, or perhaps a quiet aisle of the library, where the brightness of the day illuminated her figure. She wore a casual yet elegant outfit, a soft blouse and flowing skirt that complemented her graceful curves without drawing attention away from the natural confidence she radiated. He was acutely aware of every detail: the delicate movement of her fingers as she arranged books or sipped her coffee, the soft hum of her voice as she spoke, the way her hair caught the light as she tilted her head. The first few minutes were filled with small talk, carefully neutral but underlined with unspoken tension. He felt the pulse of attraction building, each glance, each shared smile intensifying it. Then, she leaned slightly closer to show him a detail in a book or photograph, her hand brushing his for just a moment. The touch was electric, warm, and fleeting, sending a rush of awareness through him. Her proximity made the air feel charged, as though the room itself recognized the quiet intimacy unfolding between them. As the conversation deepened, she shared glimpses of herself beyond the teasing and confidence, a story from her past, a laugh at a memory, a brief acknowledgement of vulnerability she rarely revealed. He listened intently, fascinated not only by her maturity and beauty, but by the honesty and subtle fragility beneath her composed exterior. Her dark brown eyes softened, the warmth in them inviting him to step closer emotionally without ever forcing a move physically. He realized the subtlety of her gestures. The brief touch on his arm as she laughed, the way she leaned just slightly toward him while maintaining eye contact, the natural, graceful way she carried herself, conveyed far more than words ever could. Each moment became an intimate dance, a silent communication that transcended age and experience. The nervous excitement he felt was tempered by admiration and respect, creating a blend of emotions that was both thrilling and grounding. By the time the quiet moment ended, he felt a profound connection, a sense that they understood each other beyond surface-level attraction. She had allowed him a glimpse into her world, her warmth and humanity shining through the playful teasing and confident demeanor. And he, in turn, felt seen, appreciated, and quietly emboldened by her attention. This was the moment when their slow-burning connection shifted from playful curiosity to emotional intimacy. A foundation was laid for trust, vulnerability, and subtle romantic tension, a space where they could explore feelings safely, naturally, and with growing anticipation for what might come next. As the days passed, the playful teasing began to take on a more personal and intimate tone, yet remained entirely safe and respectful. He, 22, found himself increasingly aware of every subtle movement she made, every expression she allowed herself to show. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Latino woman, her long black hair sleek and cascading over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing under the bright sunlight, and dark brown eyes sparkling with amusement and curiosity. The faint laugh lines around her eyes framed a face that radiated warmth and quiet authority, a woman who had long ago mastered the art of subtle influence. The setting was bright and inviting, a sunlit living room, a cheerful kitchen, or a quiet backyard filled with greenery. Every detail reinforced comfort and openness. The warm natural light illuminating her figure, the gentle rustle of leaves in the garden, with a soft hum of domestic sounds inside. Her presence seemed to fill the space, commanding attention effortlessly, yet never making him feel uncomfortable or pressured. Their conversation became a delicate balance of humor and subtle challenge. She noticed his flustered reactions, the way his hands twitched or his voice faltered, and she used these observations to heighten the tension playfully. "Still nervous?" she asked with a teasing smirk, tilting her head as though daring him to answer honestly. He felt his chest tighten, his pulse quickening, yet her gaze was warm and non-judgmental, encouraging him to engage despite the embarrassment. Physical cues added layers to their connection. Her hand might brush his arm when passing him a book, linger slightly longer than necessary as she pointed something out, or lightly touch his shoulder to guide him. Each gesture, though brief, carried meaning, reassurance, attraction, curiosity. The subtle brush of her long black hair against her cheek as she leaned closer, the soft warmth radiating from her body, the gentle cadence of her voice, all combined to create a tension that was both thrilling and comforting. As she teased, she revealed glimpses of her personality, the humor, the intelligence, and a quiet vulnerability hidden beneath her confident exterior. Her teasing was never mean-spirited. It was a way to draw him out, to encourage him to relax and reveal himself, and to test the boundaries of their growing intimacy. He responded in kind, gradually finding his voice, learning to laugh at himself, and discovering the subtle pleasure of being fully seen by someone so self-assured and yet approachable. The emotional goal of this stage was clear: heightened romantic tension. Their connection had moved beyond initial curiosity and nervousness. Now, every glance, every word, every accidental touch carried unspoken meaning, a promise of deeper intimacy. It was a stage of discovery, both of each other and of the feelings that had quietly grown between them. By the end of this chapter, the playful teasing had solidified their bond. He was captivated by her presence, her confidence, and her warmth, while she was intrigued by his sincerity, his nervous charm, and the way he responded to her subtle provocations. The stage was set for trust, vulnerability, and the emotional depth that would define the next phase of their slow-burning romance. After days of playful teasing and flustered interactions, the dynamic between them shifted toward a quieter, more intimate rhythm. He was 22, acutely aware of every heartbeat, every subtle movement she made, and the gentle warmth she radiated. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Latino woman with long black hair falling in soft waves past her shoulders, lightly tanned skin that glowed in the bright afternoon light, and expressive dark brown eyes that reflected both confidence and vulnerability. Her subtle laugh lines and graceful posture framed a beauty that was mature, approachable, and captivating. They found themselves in a sunlit living room, the windows casting soft, golden light across the space. A gentle breeze moved the sheer curtains, and the distant hum of life outside, birds chirping, leaves rustling, added a serene soundtrack to the moment. It was the kind of space that invited quiet reflection, perfect for sharing thoughts and feelings they had not dared express before. The conversation began hesitantly. She spoke first, her voice soft, intimate, and tinged with a hint of self-awareness. "I didn't expect to feel this connected," she admitted, her eyes locking with his. The confession hung in the air, a rare glimpse into the guarded side of her personality. He swallowed, feeling the weight of her honesty, and responded with equal sincerity. "I feel the same," he said, voice steady despite the nerves fluttering inside him. Physical closeness mirrored their emotional openness. She leaned slightly closer, the warmth of her body brushing against his, her long black hair falling naturally against her shoulder as she tilted her head to meet his gaze. He noticed the softness in her eyes, the way her lips curved into a subtle, reassuring smile, and the gentle warmth of her hand when she briefly touched his forearm. Each small gesture carried meaning, creating an unspoken dialogue of trust and understanding. As they shared more, she spoke of moments from her past, times when she had felt isolated, the challenges of balancing independence with the desire for connection, and the quiet regrets that occasionally surfaced. He listened, offering reassurance through attentive silence, a soft smile, and occasional gentle words. Her vulnerability was not weakness. It was a bridge, a way to invite him deeper into her world. He, in turn, shared his own insecurities, the nervousness that came with admiration and attraction, and the fear of crossing boundaries. She responded with warmth, leaning in slightly, letting him feel the steadiness of her presence, the comfort of her understanding. The bright environment, the sunlight, the cozy furniture, and the soft textures around them reinforced the sense of safety and intimacy. By the end of their conversation, the dynamic had shifted significantly. The teasing and nervousness were still present, but they were now underpinned by emotional trust and shared vulnerability. Every glance, every brush of a hand, and every small smile carried a deeper resonance. The foundation for a meaningful connection had been laid, a connection that respected boundaries, acknowledged the age difference subtly, and allowed intimacy to grow naturally. This was the stage where romance began to feel inevitable, not forced. It was quiet, tender, and emotionally rich, a moment that would define the trajectory of their relationship, leading toward trust, warmth, and the subtle, YouTube-safe intimacy that audiences would find both compelling and relatable. The tension that had been building over days of playful teasing, flustered interactions, and shared vulnerability finally found a turning point. He was 22, heart racing, hands slightly clammy, and mind acutely aware of every nuance in her presence. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Caucasian woman with long black hair that shimmered in the sunlight, lightly tanned skin, and dark brown eyes that held a mixture of amusement, warmth, and something quietly magnetic. Her subtle laugh lines hinted at her lived experience, while her graceful posture and confident presence made her simultaneously approachable and commanding. The setting was bright, safe, and inviting. a sunlit kitchen where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint scent of vanilla from her perfume, or a cozy living room with soft cushions and sunlight streaming through wide windows. Even the simplest gestures, a stack of books, a coffee mug on the table, seemed charged with meaning in this quiet intimacy. The conversation began casually, as it often did, but soon shifted toward honesty. She tilted her head, long black hair falling over her shoulder, and allowed herself a subtle, sincere smile. "You know, I've enjoyed this more than I expected," she said, her voice soft but deliberate, carrying a weight that made his chest tighten. The words were simple, yet their implication was profound. She acknowledged the connection they had built together. He felt a rush of anticipation and nervous excitement. Every instinct urged him to lean closer, to reach out, yet the unspoken respect between them held him back. Her presence was magnetic, but it was also safe, inviting him to explore emotion and intimacy at a natural pace. She let her hand brush against his casually, fingers grazing his as if by accident, but the touch lingered long enough to send a warmth through him that was equal parts comforting and thrilling. The dialogue carried subtle layers of meaning. She teased him lightly, just enough to make him blush, and then followed it with a gentle acknowledgement of her interest. Her dark brown eyes held a soft curiosity, a quiet testing of boundaries that invited him to respond with honesty. He found himself sharing more openly than he had before, speaking of his nervousness, admiration, and excitement, and she listened with attention and warmth, her presence steady and reassuring. Physical cues reinforced the emotional connection. She leaned in slightly, the warmth of her body brushing against his side. Her hand, when it brushed his arm or rested lightly on the table between them, felt like a tether, a gentle reminder that connection and consent were intertwined. Each gesture, each glance, built upon the foundation of trust, curiosity, and attraction that had grown steadily between them. By the end of this moment, the unspoken confession was clear. There was mutual recognition of attraction, admiration, and emotional connection. The teasing, nervousness, and playful tension had matured into something deeper, a quiet acknowledgement that both were willing to explore this relationship with care, respect, and a growing awareness of their feelings. This stage set the scene for resolution, yet maintained the slow burn essence. It was a pivotal moment where emotion and desire intertwined subtly, leaving both of them, and the audience, aware that the next steps would be guided by trust, intimacy, and the quiet thrill of a connection that had been nurtured with patience and care. Keynote 7. Warm resolution. 500 words. After weeks of nervous glances, playful teasing, and moments of quiet vulnerability, the connection between them had grown into something tender, respectful, and deeply emotional. He was 22, carrying a sense of calm confidence now, tempered by the awareness of her presence and the electric tension that still lingered under the surface. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Latino woman, long black hair falling in gentle waves around her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing in the bright daylight, and dark brown eyes that radiated warmth, intelligence, and subtle amusement. Her graceful curves and poised demeanor reflected a mature beauty, while her faint laugh lines added a softness that made her approachable and magnetic. The setting was a bright, comfortable space, perhaps a sunlit living room with plush seating, cushions catching the sunlight, and a soft breeze moving through an open window, or a cozy backyard garden with greenery, flowers, and birds chirping. The environment itself reinforced a feeling of warmth, safety, and intimacy, highlighting the comfort they had found in each other's presence. Their interactions now were calm, yet full of emotional resonance. She laughed softly at a joke he made, her hand briefly brushing his arm, a casual, warm touch that carried meaning beyond its simplicity. He noticed the subtleties, the gentle tilt of her head, the way her dark brown eyes softened as she looked at him, the faint curve of her lips when she smiled. Every glance, every gesture, was laden with unspoken affection and mutual respect. They moved through the space with an easy familiarity, sitting close enough to share a book or a cup of coffee, leaning slightly toward each other during conversation, or exchanging soft, lingering touches on the hand or shoulder. Their physical proximity mirrored the deep emotional bond that had grown. She spoke with quiet playfulness, teasing him gently, but it was tempered by warmth and understanding, acknowledging the nervous excitement that had once defined their interactions. Emotionally, the stage was one of mutual trust and gentle affection. He felt seen and appreciated, not just for his charm or curiosity, but for his sincerity, attentiveness, and respect. She, in turn, allowed herself to enjoy the connection fully, her mature perspective bringing calm, reassurance, and subtle flirtation that deepened their bond. Their conversations now included shared laughter, personal stories, and moments of quiet reflection, creating an atmosphere of intimacy without pressure. The age gap, once an unspoken tension, had become a subtle backdrop, acknowledged through her composed confidence and his youthful wonder, rather than a barrier. The story highlighted that emotional connection, trust, and mutual respect were the true foundation of their relationship. By the end, the narrative reached a satisfying, emotionally complete resolution. Their journey of slow-burning romance culminated in warmth, understanding, and gentle physical affection. Hand touches, soft brushes of hair, lingering eye contact, and hugs that spoke volumes without words. They had moved from nervous curiosity to deep emotional intimacy, playful tension to meaningful connection, and the story closed with a sense of contentment and hopeful continuity. The final impression left the audience with the understanding that romance can be patient, tender, and emotionally rich, guided by respect, trust, and the quiet thrill of discovering someone's heart. Their bond, fully formed and emotionally satisfying, stood as a testament to the beauty of a slow-burn connection that honors both desire and maturity.